Okay, so then we have David G. Lewis, PhD, Native American historian. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for inviting me. So thank you for inviting me to this event. It's an amazing event to be here at 175 years. Marion County, the original name for Marion County came from apparently a General Marion. And, but before that, Marion County was Kalapuya County, or Kalapuya County. And so that was one of the first, if not the first, county for Oregon, named after essentially this place, Kalapuya. So, and we all know that, that's common history. But the Kalapuya people in this valley here were probably here for 10,000 years or more. We obviously don't know how far back they go because the Missoula floods buried their earlier villages. So that means something like 400 generations of people were here. That's a very long time. People learned to live in this place. This is their land, their place for 400 generations, and took advantage of all the vegetable and animal resources they had. Had villages up and down the river here, and Kalapuya, Chemeketa, Chemawa, Chehalem, these are all native places, native villages and tribes that were here. So there were some 20 to 25,000 people in this area of just Kalapuya descent, and that's not counting the other neighboring tribes in the area. And so Kalapuyans lived somewhat back from the river because they knew that the river would flood. And I talked to people around here about how they probably were laughing at the Americans who came here and built their towns right on the river because they knew that eventually they would flood out, and that's exactly what happened here. So, but the Kalapuyans lived, were not very warlike people. They were very peaceful. They got along with their neighbors. They were not agriculturalists, but they did harvest camas and yampa and wapato and acorns and lots of other plants in the area. In fact, to the point where it may be that something like 75% of their diet was actually plant life rather than animals, because plants are easy to find and they don't fight back. So that's something I tell my students all the time. I actually teach at colleges and stuff, so that I'm talking to them about the Kalapuya people all the time. So Kalapuyans really welcomed the American settlers when they came here. They knew that the Americans and the French Canadians were very rich, had a lot of things they wanted: guns, fabrics, glass beads, things they liked. And so they wanted to, they had their children marry into the families. So many of the French Canadian and American settlers that were here in the valley, in French Prairie, literally married native women, Kalapuyan, Chinook, and other native women from this area. And so today, a lot of the French Canadian families that still have their farms here, that still have names on the landscape, are actually, part Native American, really, in their ancestry. And the tribes went through a horrible disease epidemic in the 1830s and probably into the 1840s. And so something like 95% of the tribes, people disappeared because they had no resistance to diseases like malaria, which is probably the main sort of vector that killed them. And so by the time settlements began for the Americans in the valley, there were very few people left. Most villages were maybe a few dozen people at the most. And so the land was open, essentially, for settlement at that point. This land had been taken care of by them for, thousands of years. Anthropologists and others have noted that they set fire to this place every year, probably in late September, and would let it burn across the prairie to sort of burn off the excess undergrowth, because if you live in Oregon at all, you know that we have way too much growth of plants. And so fire is the most efficient way to sort of cleanse the land and clean it up. And that actually prepared the land really well for settlement because it had cleared off the prairies and made it look like a very sort of park-like, farm-like, ranch-like setting where people could put their farms. And so, and there was no resistance. So the Kalapuyans saw the Americans coming in, provided no resistance, and in fact, worked for them in many ways, worked with them. Kalapuyan men would hire on to, as day laborers perhaps, to build barns, build fences, learn animal husbandry and farming. And so the Kalapuyans were really an essential part of the whole fabric of this community from the very beginning and have been all along. You know, Native people have always been here. For a while, the tribes were taken and placed at the Grand Ronde Indian Reservation. Most of the Kalapuyans went there. And most of the Kalapuyans still, you know, relate their ancestry now to Grand Ronde, being 100 to 150 years at Grand Ronde. And that's, you know, where I came from, my family came from there. My personal history is, you know, Saniam, Takelma, and Chinook ancestry. So that's that admixture of some 27 to 35 tribes at Grand Ronde created this amazing, you know, now race of people, the Grand Ronde people, that now we've gotten restored, and we're coming back from being, you know, terminated, and we're trying to do what we can to care for the land again, like we had for 10,000 years. You know, this is our place. Our people have been buried here for 400 generations. So we really, the tribal people really see this as still our place, even though we sold it in treaties in the 1850s and moved away by agreement. We still have a lot of heritage here. You know, literally the soil of the land are parts of our people, which is an interesting way to think about it, but that's the way it is. You know, we cared for and lived on this soil for a very long time. And so Kalapuyans are still here. That's my message. And thank you for inviting me. Any questions at all?
Thank you very much. Fascinating history.
Well, I'd kind of like to talk to you afterwards if you're
Sure.
still here.
I sense that about you.
Did you? Oh, wait, I have a little connection. I can say this much. My great-grandfather was the last Indian agent at Grand Ronde. They closed the farm up at St. Paul, moved up there for 7 or 8 years. Grover Cleveland appointed him.
Yeah.
And then they dissolved the tribe, said that they're ready to be out in the world like anybody else. And I know the story.
I actually studied your great-grandfather.
Serious?
Or grandfather.
Oh, I would
actually.
like to talk.
No, right. Exactly. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.